All right. Well, once again, welcome. Thank you for bearing with us. We're having a few technical difficulties. We're trying some new things. We are speaking here, not up there.
Yeah.
We've got both things going. Okay. So welcome to all you guys here and all of the people online. Our class format tonight is going to be 90 minutes. The guy will give about a 60-minute talk. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for a Q&A for about 20-25 minutes after that. So that's your time to ask questions, to be able to share some impressions that you might have had, so please feel free to do that. And as well as most of you know, on Wednesday night, Guy will ask you to participate, usually somewhere in the middle of the class, and you'll know when that is. So take advantage of that. If you do want to leave a question, you can do so in the chat box or on the GoToWebinar question box area. And if you have any technical problems, you can go to those same areas. So if you have any issues, you can also go to support@guyfinley.com. So let us know if there's any issues in that way. I am going to read a special announcement right now, and I'm going to read it just like this, so stay with me. It's an important announcement. It says, if you live locally, attend classes in person at the Foundation, or if you have been thinking about visiting Life of Learning between December 19th and January 16th, please pay close attention to this important announcement. During these 4 weeks, Guy will be out of town, and the Foundation will be closed until he returns to resume his in-person speaking schedule on January the 17th. Please be assured that even though Guy will be traveling, he will continue to live stream his talks from his home in Florida. Also note that our online student-led study groups will remain on their schedule via GoToWebinar, Facebook, and YouTube. While Guy is in Florida, he will be giving a free talk at the Daytona Beach Regional Library. His talk will be live streamed during our regular class time on Sunday, January 7th, so you will be able to attend this special presentation as well, either online or if you're near there in Daytona, you can go there and encourage that. So for more information about Guy's talk at the Daytona Library, please do not call the library, but rather visit guyfinley.org/Daytona. If you know anyone who lives in the area, be sure to invite them to Guy's talk, and do check our website's events section for any updated news announcing additional talks or interviews that may be added to his schedule while he's on the East Coast. Remember, one last time, December 19th through January 16th, this foundation will be closed, but all talks will be available online. So let's get to tonight's talk. Here's the topic for tonight. Stop being bullied by your own stressful thoughts and feelings. And the key lesson reads, go through some fear you're sure you can't, and come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and with more faith. Go around any anxious worry or doubt, and never come out.
Well, a bit of a rocky start, but lo and behold, here we are. Our intrepid team that I add a zero to their salary at least once a week is working very hard to improve the quality of the presentation that we give here at the Foundation, so that each and all of you out there in the world that join us, whether live or in person, can have a more engaging experience, because we are finding ways to keep your attention in the right place and doing the right thing through the work that we're doing to make these talks a more personal and enjoyable experience. You'll see quite a bit of this over the next month or two as we develop these projects, so please be patient with us as the case may be. So, if you've never joined us on a Wednesday, it is what we call a Discovery Wednesday, and ever so briefly, since we've already moved through about 7 minutes of time, it's just a class where we all work together at some point to examine something about our consciousness that most of us aren't aware of, but that as we bring the content of that consciousness into our awareness, we see that it is far more common and a much wider basis of experience than any of us would guess. We all share these things in common, and that's part of why we have our Discovery Wednesday, so that we can learn these things about ourselves and not be so afraid of them. Now, I don't know how honest you are. I can only hope that you are at least getting close to that. But do not most of us have at least one thing in our lives, in our history, in our secret treasure chest of unspoken torments, things that we are afraid of, yes or no? Yes. So I've written actually a couple special key lessons, and I have 2 stories to tell you tonight to bring us into the body of material that we will work to make a list of later. Let's bring up the second key lesson, please. I sent it incorrectly. It should say, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is not bliss. It is one of the driving forces behind the feeling of being made a victim in this life. On the other hand, self-knowledge is the only real source of security there is, as it is incapable of being made into a captive of anything. Ignorance is not bliss. It is one of the driving forces behind the feeling of being made a victim in this life. On the other hand, self-knowledge is what we strive for here. It's the only real security there is, because there's nothing you can do to authentic self-knowledge to take it away from the person who has won it. It is yours forever when you have true self-knowledge. So I asked at the start, how many of you know that there is something that you know about yourself and that others don't? And that by and large, at any measure of possibility, you would much prefer that no one ever know that about you. Yes or no? It's a strange thing, incidentally, as human beings to actually have these secrets. But here's the first point. Is it true or is it not that there come points along the way of whatever path I'm on where conditions suddenly change unexpectedly, and I find myself in fear of those conditions because of what they seem to portend to me about the difference between who I am and where I was going and what I was going to get versus who I may be and what may happen to me to destroy whatever it is that I was so identified with. Will you agree with me? I ask for this reason. We're going to look at something that most of us have no knowledge at all about. That's why I said ignorance is not bliss. Most of us have not an inkling at all, the way that we're going to by the time we're done with our work this evening. We have no idea whatsoever that we are bullied all the time by something within ourselves that we don't recognize as a bully. Now, you know, and for quite some time in the world, and it's always this way with the world. So help me God, it is always this way with the world. The world, the body politic, the body religion, the government, whoever and whatever that group is assembled for the sake of bringing morality and goodness into this world, they are always pointing to something that they get you to believe is the cause of you being a victim at one level or another. And it doesn't matter left or right, up or down, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist. There will always be some antagonistic position to whatever it is that you have profited from, that you believe in. There will be something to bring up in you a certain reaction. And it always seems, doesn't it, when we have these reactions, that the reaction is the validation of myself. I know this is true, you don't. But what we don't see is how these reactions eventually and actually at the outset rule the human being who identifies with them. You are ruled by any reaction you have that you don't know has come into you to do what? To point to something in the world, in someone that you know, as being the cause of whatever the conflict you're in that moment. And it can be anything, and you'll see as we go through this. So the world for the longest time, and still today, there were these whole school movements, get rid of bullies, find ways to treat bullies so they don't bully your kid and all the rest of that. And it was quite significant. And not that there's anything wrong with that. But how can somebody teach a child to deal with a bully when they're bullied by their own union, their own government, their own religion, their own ideology and beliefs? So if I'm bullied by something and I don't know it, for instance, I'm bullied by the fear of losing my job if I don't acquiesce to whatever the powers that be are saying, you must teach this and you must do that. So here I am going to try to teach children not to be bullied when I live in a constant mortal fear of some kind or another, that somehow my security is going to be taken away if I don't become complicit with whatever the program or the plan is being handed out at the moment. Do you see this with me or not? So in the world, you've got kids, they're bullies. What is a bully in the world? It's just rhetorical right now. What is a bully in the world? Did you, as a kid, were you ever bullied? Yes or no? Most of us were. What is that bully? All we know about the bully is that we want to hurt them because they're hurting us. They're doing something to us that is unfair and that we have to acquiesce to because in one way or another, the bully is greater, more powerful, wiser, whatever it be, than I am. So I'm kind of in this place where all I can do is whine about or complain about what's being done to me. Please, I am not justifying bullies. But the fact is, there's something in you or in me that when someone who is a potential bully experiences whatever this energy or quality is of my character, it sets them off. Why else would they be set out upon me unless something in me set them off? Do you understand? They don't bully everybody. Bullies always have their favorites. Well, what makes me the favorite of any bully? And the answer is, again, there's an unseen relationship between some character in my consciousness and some character in that bully's consciousness that is drawn to, wanting to destroy, push down, or get rid of whatever it is that brings up in that bully the pain it feels when it's around me. Do you understand? This is simplistic, but I have to go quickly. Do you see this or not? So a physical bully wants to overcome something that comes over him. Pure and simple. Yes or no? Well, how do you explain the bully inside of me? How do you explain the bully that lives inside of you, that when certain things take place, it turns on you and tries to bully you? We can get outside, can't we? This person's already in pain. Whatever environmental, physical, familial experience produced this upheaval in them, something about me, maybe I look more fortunate, maybe whatever it is, it brings out the bully. What brings out the bully in me when I am being bullied by a fear? When I'm being bullied by an anxiety, first of all, maybe I'll slow down. Are you not bullied by your own anxiety? Are you not bullied by your own anger? But see, you sit here and nod, but the truth is you don't know you're being bullied by your anxiety. And the reason I'll tell you that you don't know you're being bullied by your anxiety is because you would ask yourself, how in the name of God can I be bullied by a part of myself that when it bullies me, I suffer for the bully inside of myself? How is that even possible for a human being to live like that? Do you understand the question? Something in me steps up and starts to bully me when, and we're going to go through a list eventually, and when it starts to bully me, it's bullying me because it's in pain. And what does this bully in me do with its pain other than pain me with itself? Now, I don't know if you can see this, but this means that inwardly there is some strange relationship going on in this consciousness where on one hand, a condition will bring out this negativity, this reaction. Are we not bullied by our own reactions? So out comes this reaction, and it begins to push me around. Does it not? So somehow or other, the me that is being bullied and pushed around by that reaction believes and must be other than the me that's doing the pushing, born of the reaction. This speaks directly to a consciousness that is divided. And it is not only divided, but it is set against itself in much the same way as the bully in the outer world is threatened by some condition in the person he or she bullies. There must be something in my own consciousness that is threatened and in pain over something in my own consciousness. Now, can you see why ignorance is not bliss? You have to ask yourself, how many years of my life, and you have to be honest, have I been sitting at my desk, on the phone, driving my car, and the smallest thing can happen, and the next moment I am being pushed around by a reaction that I've had, and I'm thinking along the lines of that reaction, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with what that reaction, listen, is pointing to outside of me and blaming for the bullied feeling I have. Only the problem is this: there's nothing outside of you that bullies you the way in which you imagine, because the fact of the matter is, what's bullying me is my own reaction. Did you cause it? You didn't cause it, but you did disturb it and reveal that consciousness. So now we have an important new way, I hope, of looking at this, so that we can look at our two stories and see if we can't examine as best we can, and for the whole point of the first part of the talk. How do I stop answering fear the way it pushes me to answer it? Do you know why you rush? You rush because you're bullied into rushing. Pure and simple. But you don't think when you're rushing that anxiety has bullied you. You think when you're rushing that you must get someplace so as to answer the pain that you're in, when the pain belongs to an interior bully that you don't even know is inside of you. And until you become aware of this interior division, you will forever be driven from pillar to post by every last one of these reactions that you don't see or understand. Take a nice deep breath. Let's have the first story. Our apprentice angel is out on another mission with the senior angel. And we use these vehicles, in this instance, the apprentice and senior angel, as a way in which, through the eyes of the apprentice angel, we might be able to see things that we can start to recognize are true, but we never saw it that way because we don't have the eyes to see yet or the ears to hear. So we use these as a way to introduce us to our own consciousness, actually. So here they are, and they're flying around, and just like that, they're wherever they want to be, and they're down somewhere on a distant planet on the far end of the galaxy, populated by strange beings. Guess which planet we're on? And they're at a big company dinner where the awards are being given out for the best salesperson of the year. And they're just floating. You can't see them, but they can see you, and they can see everything about you. And the senior angel takes the apprentice angels on these trips to educate the apprentice angel. That's what these classes are. I bet you I'd be a lot more popular if I called that Foundation for Apprentice Angels. Why didn't I think of that? So there they are, and they're watching, and everybody's having a glass of wine and toasting everybody until at some point, one of the persons who was apparently shunned in the progression of awards for being the top, they make some cruel and passive-aggressive comment to the person who a moment ago had been awarded the trip to Fiji. That's where I want to go. And so what happens if someone gets your trip to Fiji and you don't? Right? And so this person makes this passive-aggressive jab at this person who got it. And now the person, you can feel it when people attack you, right? And this person can feel that the attack that this person has done. But on the other hand, he's won, and he doesn't want to let on at all that someone beneath him could possibly get to him with any kind of comment. Do you know that behavior? So he's sitting there trying to be cool. And the apprentice angel is sitting there, and he's always wondering why the senior angel takes him to the places that he does. When all of a sudden, right from the person that received this passive-aggressive comment, out of the person kind of oozes out a kind of a shadow. And as the apprentice angel is looking, he's looking to see, anybody in the room noticing that this oozing shadow is coming out of this man? Nobody notices. And no longer does it, he watched this, then it starts to kind of look like a doppelganger, only kind of woo-woo, of the person that the comment was made to. And as that takes the shape, then that shadowy shape leans over and whispers something into the ear of the man that it is the doppelganger of. And when it whispers into his ear, you can see the man has a little reaction. The apprentice angel can see it, but he doesn't do anything. So that shadow picks up a fork from the table and gives the man a little jab in the side with the fork, at which point the man lets out an equally passive-aggressive comment to the person that hurt him the moment before. Now, ordinarily, you don't see any of this take place, do you? When you're at your family dinner, somebody makes a comment, you bear it as long as you can until you can't, and then you just bust out. Well, now I'm explaining to you what all that's about. So that's the first story. Now, he wants to ask the senior angel what in the world's going on, but just like that, they're whisked off, and they're in somebody's home. Beautiful home, nicely decorated, clean, not too elaborate. And there's a woman sitting there in the living room. The lights are on, a candle's lit over in the corner, and she's paging through a photo album. At least that's as best he can tell. And as she's looking through this photo album, she kind of comes to a stop on one of the pages. And as she comes to a stop, what starts to happen? Out of her side, there starts to emerge this shadowy-like doppelganger of herself. It doesn't look like her much at first, but the more form it takes, the more it looks pretty much exactly like her. And as it's taking form, that doppelganger starts to get a kind of a cruel look on its face, and it whispers something to this woman. And as it whispers to her, you can see she begins to take on the facial expression of this dark shadow. And then she just gets up and goes and gets a bottle of wine out of the kitchen. She brings the bottle of wine back, and she sits down with the bottle of wine to the photo album, and something's jabbing her to move on, and she's looking at more. And the more she looks, the more she drinks. Until later in that evening, she's had so much to drink that she basically passes out, at which point the shadow comes back into her. The next morning, she wakes up. It's not a pretty picture. You've seen it. Not a pizza box on her, but the bottle of wine, and she's passed out there. And as she wakes up, the shadow starts to come out of her again. And as it comes out again, the apprentice angel can see that it's saying something to her, but he can't hear. He says to the senior angel, what is he saying? He said, that shadow is calling her all kinds of disgusting names for being so weak as to fall into that addiction that she's got one more time. So this happens a bunch of times. We won't go through more, but you're getting the general picture, right? So finally, the apprentice angel, busting with curiosity, he says to the senior angel, oh my God, how does it that nobody sees this happening? Because they went to several places where the shadow would come out, and forks and spoons, and how is it? I mean, who or what in the name of heaven is that about? What is that? He asks the senior angel. And the senior angel looks at him quite quietly. He says, it's quite a common phenomena here in this semi-fallen world. What do you mean a common phenomenon? What is the phenomena that I'm looking at? And the senior angel says, that's her personal bully. And everyone on this planet has one of their own. Again, we're looking at things that we don't see about ourselves. That's why we have these talks. So that we can begin to see what we don't see, so that in the bliss of ignorance that always includes judging ourselves and having enemies, we can begin to dismiss that usual habitual path of least resistance in the moment of unwanted circumstances and use those moments for the purpose they're given to us, which is to begin to understand, in this instance, that we are, for all intents and purposes, when we're brought into this world, we are brought into, now listen, this world is not the physical world you see, although it exists, but this world is a manifestation of the consciousness that produced it. This world is a creation of a consciousness that produced it. And in this consciousness that has produced this world, that conditioned consciousness, the world has become equally conditioned to the point where a person has actually learned to live with something that cannot wait to bully him or her into doing what it wants them to do, so that why? So that they can be free of being bullied. Why do I ever do the things that I do that after I've done them, the evil I would not, then I judge myself? Why would I ever do anything like that? And the answer is because I don't see I've been bullied into it. That without any awareness on my part, some part of myself that I have no notion, not even a small idea exists at all, begins to look at that moment and tell me what it is that's wrong with that moment. And the more clear it can make why that moment isn't what I want it to be or should be, the more definitive it is in telling me what I must do, pushing me to do what it wants so that it can return to its so-called native state of peace when it has no peace at all, because the bully doesn't exist without something to bully. The bully doesn't exist. Can there be a bully without something for it to bully? In the world you can see that. Well, how in the name of God can there be a bully in me that pushes me around? Unless there is an unseen state of consciousness I'm unaware of, and that I'm complicit without having any idea at all that I am in the continuation of it. Are you following me? Here comes your part. Ready? Let's bring up the list. Name one or more of the painful thoughts or feelings that you've seen or suspect have the power to push you around. In essence, that bully you into caving into what it wants. That's not the best English, Guy. In essence, that bully you into caving into what it wants. You get the idea, yes or no? Now, I have primed the list like I always do, but do you understand the question? So how about this? Are you ever bullied into doing things for others that you don't really want to do? Yes or no? Do you ever say yes when you want to say no? Out loud, please. Why? I'm bullied into this fear that if I don't do what they want me to do, somehow or other they will be disappointed in me and they won't love me the way I want to be loved. I'm bullied by the fear of disappointing other people. Are you not? How about bullied by the need for approval? Now, you may not think to yourself that when you're fawning or hoping to gain someone's esteem, whatever, you may not think to yourself that you're bullied into that. But the fact of the matter is, if I'm actually, and I always am, limiting or otherwise denigrating myself by throwing myself at someone so I can get from them what they want. In that moment, the only way I would ever compromise myself like that is if I've been bullied into doing it. Can you see that or no? Maybe something a little more common. Get ready, I'm going to bring you in, and out there too. Are you ever bullied to prove yourself? What a nightmare that is. Bullied into measuring yourself against your brothers, your sisters, the people you work with. Bullied into measuring your wealth to others' wealth. All of that thought, all of that activity based on what? I have to prove myself to the world. And you're taught that, by the way. Last one, and then I'm going to bring you in. How many of you are bullied into defending yourself? Where somebody doesn't do what you want, and out, like the first comment I had at the beginning, out of you will come all of these comments or criticisms or judgments. Do you know that you never judge another human being that you aren't first bullied into doing? And you're bullied into judging, you're bullied into that moment where you feel like you've got to defend yourself. Why do I feel like I have to defend myself? What's the nature? What's actually bullying me in that moment? We have to go into it. But I'll hold the question for after I brought you in. Let's have you name some of the painful thoughts or feelings that you've seen or suspect have the power to bully you, to push you around. Ellen.
The need to be seen as perfect.
I am bullied by my wish to be seen as a perfect human being. I'll summarize it. I'm bullied by my need to have you see me the way I believe I am. Yes or no? So my pursuit of being perfect in the eyes of others is actually a pain that I don't see because I'm forever being bullied into trying to act out or pretend that I'm something I'm not. That's painful, is it not? You'll see this loop. Patricia.
Bullied by any self-image.
I'm bullied by every image that I have of myself. Because any time life comes along and challenges the image of myself, for instance, as being cool, calm, and collected, then do I not have to put on an act? So anytime a human being's pulling on an act, it's because they've been bullied into it by something that believes unless they can pull the act off, they're going to be seen as being fake or a liar. Let me go to my board here. Societal and personal expectations. Yeah, that's a big one, Neil, of course. We're all bullied by societal expectations, wanting to fit in. Are you not bullied by wanting to fit in? How many of you ever say things that you don't want to say or are disingenuous in your comments? Yes or no? This list is going too quick here. There's a lot of... Joan, I'm bullied when yeah, that's a big one. I'm bullied by my appetites. I'm bullied when something tells me eat, basically, drink, take substance, yes or no? How about I'm bullied when something says you can't stand being alone, go buy something, go shopping, call somebody, do anything other than be by yourself. So my fear of emptiness bullies me on the board. That's a big one, Rob. I was waiting for Ellen to bring it up. Rob says, bullied by guilt. Barbara.
Rushing to get things done.
I mentioned that one. I am bullied by anxiety. Anxiety pushes me and tells me I will be free of the pain if I pay it off, which we're going to get into. You always have to pay off the bully in order for the bully to remain in your place doing to you what it does. One, bullied into apology. Yeah, I have that on my list too. Bullied into apologizing with no reason at all. How many of you know you are apologists in all the wrong meaning of the word? Boy, just let something go. Let somebody even have a slightly twisted view of you, and you'll be right there making sure that they see you the way you want to be seen. Aren't you bullied into that? Yes or no? Namita, fear of being ridiculed, of failure. That's a big one. Fear of failure. Imagine, I'm so afraid of being, not of failing, this is critical, I'm so afraid of being seen as a failure, of thinking of myself as a failure, that I let that fear bully me into doing things that are promised if I just do this, then tomorrow I'll be rid of the bully. So I pay the bully today for the presence of the bully tomorrow, and it doesn't matter what I do with the bully, it remains in place because you can't get rid of this essential division in the consciousness by paying it off as it asks you to pay off. Rebecca, bullied into presenting a physical aesthetic. Those are fairly fancy words. Bullied into basically trying to make you see me as pleasing and powerful and beautiful as I am. Bullied into righteousness when others disagree. Do you ever get this? I have that on my list. Are you ever bullied by frustration with other people? Now, when you're frustrated with somebody else, can you not see that they've said something, your impatience starts to get tweaked, and the next thing you know, because life isn't going the way you want it to go, here comes this bully in you and it says, well, here's how to handle this. Just beat them into submission. Just get that out of the way, whatever it is. Or bullied into avoiding the moment where if I was paying attention, I would be aware of the bully instead of the promise it makes that I can become something freer later. You wouldn't believe how many things are on this list. I'm bullied by my own thoughts, of course. Katrina, bullied by the fear that I am worthless and therefore have to do a dance. Therefore, I have to dazzle with my footwork. Yeah, that's it. I'm telling you. We are bullied by something that tells us that unless the world sees us the way we have imagined we need to be seen, that we are not worth anything at all. So we are bullied into taking on appearance. We are bullied into doing all these things to do what? Listen, to escape the experience of myself when I begin to see the truth of myself. Because what does the bully always say one way or the other? Nothing to see here, boss. Look over there. The bully is forever pointing to the pain that it says is the cause of the conflict, when the conflict is essentially in this consciousness with something that has already decided who and what and how things should be. And when it's not that way, in steps the bully to ostensibly correct the world by doing what? By getting you to compromise yourself for fear of what it will do to you if you don't answer the bully. Do you see it? More in the room, Deborah.
I'm bullied by my own opinions.
Of course, I'm bullied by my own opinions. Why am I bullied by my opinions? Because I have to assert myself to make sure you understand, John, that you're not right and never have been. Okay? Let's be honest about it. John, you have a retort.
Bullied into avoiding conflict.
That's so perfect. What he said was bullied into avoiding conflict with the one who... Now, please try to see this. If I am afraid and believe that the condition, whatever it may be, is superior to my ability to understand its source, then the bully is keeping the source hidden from me because the source is in my own consciousness and it doesn't want me. So that's what avoidance is. You take the path of least resistance because you're bullied into taking it. Yes or no? Claudia, bullied by expectations. Yes. Judith, bullied by needing to win. That's a big one, isn't it? How many of you are bullied into having to have the last word? John. Bullied by depression and insecurity. That's a big one. I'm bullied by this constant sense of insecurity and depression. But that flies over to what Katrina was saying. I wouldn't feel this depression and worthlessness unless something in me was telling me, you know what, you just don't measure up, and therefore the last resort for you is to feel terrible about yourself. And I insist that you feel this way, the bully says, because it'll prove to you the value that you just never were able to extract from your life. Can you see how all of this runs? I got to go, 6:42. No, the list never stopped. Is it pretty clear at this point that without seeing it. We are always in relationship with something, given an unwanted moment, that is bullying us into trying to escape the experience of ourselves in that moment. That's what the bully is. The bully is the attempt to get your attention onto what that consciousness blames for the pain, so that way you never get a chance to actually realize, how in the name of God can I be pushed around by my own anxiety? I'm actually begging you to ask that question of yourself. How can I be pushed into saying something to somebody that hurts them? Because that's the only way it happens. How can I be bullied into having an enemy? And you are, whether you know it or not, you're bullied into having an enemy. Who's the bully that gives you an enemy? Who's the bully? Your idea about how they should be and how they should treat you, and when they're not and when they don't, they are your enemy, and you are bullied then into attacking back instead of recognizing there'd be no need to attack any human being unless you felt bullied by them. So when somebody is negative to you or toward you, gives this painful expression to you, I'm filled with instantaneous resistance, am I not? The resistance tells me the pain is the product of the person that I'm looking at, doesn't it? But the person didn't create the resistance in me. They revealed the content of a consciousness that had already identified with this idea that nothing should ever get in the way of this image of myself. And so I'm bullied into having an enemy. Do you see this with me? Some form of addiction. We talked about that. I don't need to go any further. So let me go on to the next part. We still have enough time. This is pretty fascinating if you can see what we've been looking at. Somehow or other, I am bullied into having an unseen, codependent relationship with my own nature. Am I not codependent if this consciousness is producing the bully when it blames for the pain, and the me that is being pained by it, and they don't exist independent of one another, and yet they certainly appear to be other than one another? Am I not codependent with my own conflicted consciousness? Yes or no? I can see some of you don't understand that. When you're anxious and you snap at somebody, or you run, or you sit and your mind races 1,000 miles an hour trying to figure out how you can get everything to be the way it's supposed to be so you can rest, are you not codependent in that moment with a bully that has promised you 1,000 times, if you just do what I'm telling you to do, you won't have to do it again? But you always do it again because you don't recognize in that moment that the bully that promises you a time when you'll be free is the time you meet next moment where the bully is still there. Isn't it? Next list. You ready? I don't have a heading for it, Eric, but you could put it up. Oh, I do. Good for me. Next list. Who or what is your personal bully, and how do you pay him off? We talked about personal bullies, yes or no? How do you pay off your personal bully? The bully doesn't stay in your life unless you pay it off. Do you understand that? How do I pay off the personal bully? I made a couple examples. If I have time, I'll get you involved. Ready? How many of you are ever bullied by a feeling of being uncomfortable? Isn't that a bully? How do you pay off the fear of being uncomfortable? You have to pay it off. How's it paid off? By identifying with the pleasures or desired preferences and the sensation that if you just console yourself here, comfort yourself here, eat something, do something, you won't have to be uncomfortable anymore because you'll be on doing something else that's far better than being uncomfortable. Yes or no? You won't say yes. Yes or no? I'm always paying the bully that says, I can't take it. This is too much. There's no way you're getting through this discomfort, whether it's just because you have to sit on a chair instead of a couch, or whether you've couched inside of you all of this animosity towards someone, it always says, pay me off. Because if you don't, I'm going to increase the pain of your discomfort. Please? How about bullied? This is a big one. It was all through all of this. Bullied by the fear of seeing the truth of myself. Now, I know that this doesn't fully resonate yet, but all the time you are being given glimpses of the fact that you are nothing like you've imagined yourself to be. I mean, the truth is it's endless. The minute somebody disagrees with you, you don't think to yourself that this proves that I'm whatever. Your disagreement proves that I know what I'm talking about. That's what your disagreement proves. So I'm asking you now, if in fact something says, don't look at that. Now, I know that we don't hear a voice that says, don't look at that. Okay, let's be quite clear. What do I, in quotes, hear? What is it that happens in the moment of a reaction when something unwanted has taken place? Is not my reaction saying, look over here? And I must look over here because it says if you don't look over here, you're going to have to remain being who you are without any hope in this moment. So look over here means look in time to a time when you won't be what you don't want to see right now. Try to let that sink in. Look over here and the time will come when you won't be what you don't want to see right now. Can you not see? How do I say this? How do I look away from myself without something in me saying, don't look at yourself because it's too painful to see your greed, your fear, your ambition, your anxiety? So how do I pay off the part of me that says, don't look away? Do you understand? Do you ever catch yourself, too late I might add, running around and doing everything and anything other than dealing with the actual experience of the moment you've been given? How do I pay it off? How am I paying off the bully? It's promising me a better day is going to come. I just have to get there. Isn't it? You know, don't worry. You won't. Tomorrow you'll be over this anxiety thing. Because it's only because of this particular relationship and circumstance. That's the only reason you're like this. Don't pay attention to the little man behind the curtain, because one day you're going to own the whole city. And then you can keep the man or get rid of him. It won't make any difference because you'll be king or queen of the whole world. That's what it says. Don't look there. Look in time. Look in time. Now, the time that you look to in order to not see what is in the moment, does it exist or is that time in imagination? And when that time is in imagination, when I will become free, then am I not identified in that very moment with that sense of self and the time to come? So what is it that that bullies me when, as always, the time doesn't come quite the way I want it? Is it the fact that the time didn't come the way I want it? Or is it because I was identified with the time and I'm being bullied by my own resistance to a condition that doesn't play out the way I've imagined it? How can I be bullied by my own resistance? Do you understand? You can't have resistance without some form of insistence. You get that. We've talked about it. The insistence goes with me everywhere I go. I just don't know that it is my constant partner until some plan doesn't play out. And then suddenly I'm filled with resistance, blaming the moment for not being whole, when I entered into the moment demanding, already with a bully in place that I didn't know until the condition awakens the bully, it steps up, and the next thing I know, I am its captive. Was that clear? So part of your exercise, because I'm going to run out of time here because I have a story to tell you. How are you paying off the bully? You have to pay off the bully. Do you understand? You can't there's no bully that you don't pay off. Whatever it was that you said it bullies you, it's not in your life unless you pay it off. So is it the bully's fault? So here's the story. Nice deep breath. Here's a little boy. We'll make him 12, 13 years old. I can identify with this. There was a bully in my school. His name was Elvis. Yeah. So he comes home from school, and he doesn't look that happy. And Dad, Mom sit down representing intelligence. What's going on, son? For the last couple of weeks, and I know we've only been to this new place, this new city for a month. You've only been in school. You're always like down and out. What's going on? And the boy says, well, there's a bully. It's really tough. Well, what do you mean there's a bully? Well, it's not just one. I'm kind of being bullied by everybody. And that's what happened to me. You have to be clear, son. I can't understand what you're saying. Well, this boy came up to me. He was 2 grades older than I was. And he said to me, you're getting bullied a lot, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, well, you give me your sandwich every day, I'll take care of your bullies. Really? And so that's what I did. Because for the first week, he kept all the bullies off of me. It was unbelievable. He sat next to me so he could have my sandwich, but nobody came over and tried to bully me. But about a week ago, he said, I need your sandwich and your dessert. And I said, well, but that wasn't what we agreed. He said, you want my protection or not? Try to see this. Do you want my protection or not? Says the man who turns out to be the bully. That's what happens to us. Something says, give me your sandwich. Give me what I want. Give yourself what I want. Give it to me. I'll keep the bullies at bay. I'll make those conditions so they're not problems to you. And you go, oh, that's great. Here's my sandwich. Here's my dessert. Here's my lunch money. Here's my jacket. Little by little, the influence begins to proceed in such a way that the next thing you know, what's going on is that the one who was hired to protect him from bullies becomes the bully. The belief in a tomorrow that will be better than today becomes the bully now. And then I just hire another bully. I have another imagination, another action that will one day free me. I discover God. I think to myself, well, I'm going to turn to God. I'm going to develop. I'm going to become a spiritual person. And all you've done is what? You've paid off the fear with the promise of something that will liberate you from that fear, but that the more you call on it, the more you judge yourself and that divine, whatever it may be, for not being there in the moment when you need it, and it wants to be paid off again. Doesn't it? So the father looks at the boy and he says, well, I guess there's only one thing you can do. Well, what would that be? His father says, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? No, it is obvious. Stop paying him. That's the only alternative, unless you want to give our house away and my car and everything else in the hopes that if you just pay off the bully enough, the bully will go away. Can you pay the bully enough to make it go away if the bully is inseparable from your own wants and not wants? I can't, Dad. Why? He's going to beat me up. Son, what do you think he's doing every day? Did you not come home in pain? Yes. Well, tomorrow when he wants more, are you not going to be in pain? Yes. Risk it. Find out what happens if you don't pay him off. Last key lesson, please. This is a summary and an exercise, all wrapped into one. Allowing any painful thought, any dark feeling to eat at you by consenting to sit down with it at what turns out to be a table of torment serves nothing save for feeding some unconscious nature that lives only to consume negative energy and your life along with it. What have we done as we wrap this up? What have we learned? I live with a bully. When I open my eyes, it's there. That shadowy figure that comes out of my own imagination and starts to tell me, you got to rush. You got to worry. You're not going to get through this. You're not good enough. And then when you give into it and then begin to move through your life according to whatever dance steps that particular shadow in that moment connected to whatever the condition is, and then you do that and it never goes away. But it hides the fact that it never goes away because it will always promise you, listen to me, promise you with the presence of pain as the way in which you can be free of it. The bully uses pain in order to promise you a time will come when you won't be in pain if you just pay it off. The point of this talk is very simple. I think you'd understand it, do you not? Stop paying off the bully. When you feel the negative state come on, the stress, the anxiety, the fear, whatever it is, the avoidance, whatever it may be, the blame that you have, instead of letting that consciousness bully you, you turn the table on it by reversing your attention and asking inwardly, what will happen here if I don't pay you off? If I don't go where you want me to go, if I don't think the thoughts you want me to think, if I don't go through the emotions that you say I must in order to escape this condition, what will happen to me? And then that's up to you to find out. But what you'll find out is that the only power the bully has ever had is your belief that somehow or other you as a human being must live up to, and everyone else must see you accordingly, according to some identity that you have that is the source of your bullying at all points in time. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
get started with our Q&A in just a second. I just have a quick reminder that all these free online talks are sponsored by the nonprofit Life of Learning Foundation here in Southern Oregon. And if you'd like to help us, which many of you already do, and we do appreciate that, know that every donation you make, no matter the size, helps us to reach out and helps others around the world with these teachings. So if it makes a difference in your situation, all donations are tax deductible in the U.S. And at any time you'd like and any amount is helpful, go to guyfinley.org/donate. There's a whole page there that you can see even other ways to help us that even don't cost you any money. So do help us out if you can. It's greatly appreciated. Also, we do have a quick reminder, Friday night study group. We're going to talk about Sunday's talk last Sunday. And it's a great time to be able to share what you're learning. It helps really give a supercharge to your work if you work on the talks like Sunday or Friday and then share with other students how you are, what you're seeing about yourself. It helps everyone. So that's Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and then of course Insight Timer Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific. All right, let's go ahead and bring Guy on and get started with our Q&A. Guy, is there anything you want to say before we start?
No, I think we can just get into the dialogue if there is, and if there's not, then I can add a few ideas to what we looked at. Go ahead.
Okay, we have two people in the queue.
Okay.
And just want to invite anybody on GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand by clicking on that little hand icon and you'll come into the queue. Or if you'd like to write a question, I can read it to Guy on any of the formats that we have tonight, YouTube or Facebook or here. And we do have a question that just came in written. So go ahead and do that if you'd like, but we're going to start with Shoshana first. Shoshana, you're unmuted. Just unmute yourself. Click on your microphone. We're not seeing your microphone go green. And now you're gone. So we'll come back to you, Shoshana. Let's go next to Namita.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Namita.
So my big bully that I think I have that attacks me is the fear of failure.
Yeah.
And this has been with me even as a child, I think, when like just going into an exam or now preparing for a class, I feel like if I don't prepare enough, that I'm gonna fail. So from how I see it is I have two choices. Either I just go into it unprepared and fail and see what happens, or I feel like these days I can just watch it and do nothing, or just disconnect from it completely and just let whatever happens happen. So I don't know which way to. What do you think about this?
None of the above. Part of the real education of the soul, Namita, is its gradual awakening to and realization that it has come into a world whose consciousness, because of its divided nature, instantaneously acts as a corrupting agent to anything that enters into it. It is not your consciousness Namita, that fears failing. Every human being on this planet fears failing. In one way or another, we all jump through a hoop anytime it looks like we might be set more free or we might be punished for not living up to, now this is the point, what I think are my expectations. They are not your expectations, Namita. They belong to that little girl who watched mother and father stress to the max, trying to prove somehow or other that they haven't failed so they can be seen as someone who has excelled, and then tell you, you'll be greater than I am, you get this education, you just jump through the hoops that I couldn't jump through, and one day you won't have an animal trainer telling you what to do. And that's been going on for millennia, because that consciousness conditions itself with every character it creates in order to escape its own conditioning. And you have to see that, Namita. So that when this, in quote-unquote, fear of failure comes up, the options aren't binary the way they are for your mind now. What if the real option in the moment where I've done what I need to do as practically as I can, and let me put in quotations, practical does not include being punished by something pushing me to become someone or something seen in the eyes of others as great. There's nothing practical in that. I take the practical steps I can, given the time I'm able to do that, and then I come into the moment not trying to prove myself, but discover myself. Anytime you set out to prove yourself, you have entered into the moment with a bully who has told you what it means to prove yourself. Can you see that, everybody? So I must be aware of these conditions instead of letting them make me a captive predicated on what the bully is telling me I have to do, be, or otherwise succeed at doing in this world to be successful. I cannot put into words the essence of what I'm trying to convey. You still think it's your life, but you don't know that what you call your life is not your life. It is a life that you dressed yourself in because it was in your parents' closet to put on that costume, to put on that identity, to pick up that conditioned nature. You don't know that. But it's as you begin to see that you have the freedom to challenge these moments where the bully is telling you, fit in, be this, do that, because if you don't, hell's going to break loose. And one day you realize, I'm in hell with you. I'm in hell listening to you threaten me. Push me to the point where I'm convinced that if I don't prove myself, I'm nothing. So that I compromise and pay you off by doing everything I can to prove what can't be proven, and that is that I am as I've imagined myself to be, because it was never me that imagined myself that way at all. Work with that, Namita. On we go, Doug.
Okay, let's go next to Larry. Larry, there you go.
Okay. Hi, Guy.
Hi, Larry.
I wanted to see if I can get some advice on whenever I see something that's negative in myself, whether it's for what someone says to me and I respond in a negative way, or thoughts in my mind, or thoughts from the past. I see them, and I'm able to see them objectively, but then I seem to be at times pulled back into the orbit of those feelings anyway, and I feel the pull to go back into orbit. Do you have any suggestions on how I can remain steadfast in my objectivity?
Absolutely. Stop it.
Good. Got it.
Listen to me, Larry. What in the name of God lives in me that is attracted to feeling bad about myself? What in the name of God is attracted to believing that if I judge myself severely for not being who I'm supposed to be, proves that I am what I imagine myself to be? So instead of falling into the attraction, become aware of the attraction, and with a silent question born of being aware of yourself as possible, try to notice, you know what? I actually don't know who to be in this moment without letting something bullying me into telling me what the path is from this point forward. Ask and you will receive, but learn to ask in the right way. In this instance, the way we ask is we say, I'm not paying anymore. And then when you stop paying, or you intend to, and you see, sweet Mother of God, I know I mustn't pay, and yet here I am paying again. That will begin to bring you into an awareness of a consciousness that is unaware of itself, because its attention belongs to whatever reaction appears and drives it to look at what that consciousness says. Look at this, be this, think that. And one day you won't do that mechanically. You'll be there watching that unfold. And you will be, if you want to use those words, at last aware of this consciousness that has its own built-in bully system, instead of belonging to it because you acquiesce all the time to what it tells you you have to do and be. Here's an example. I want to bring this in. We all the time, it happens in this room with people that I talk to wherever I am in the world. Everybody says, but you don't know what happened to me in my past. If you knew what I went through, you would never say the things that you say. So I want you to see the following. What is it in me that bullies me into revisiting the past? I wouldn't revisit the past if I knew every time I did it I was going to be a victim of it, would I? And yet I do it, don't I? So what is it in me that is bullied into revisiting the past? Listen to this. Because that consciousness tells me if I revisit it enough, one day I won't be a victim of it anymore. You see that, whether it's the deep past or something that happened to you 3 days ago, you can begin to realize I am paying off the bully because it wants me to think about what it wants me to think about. I'm not paying you anymore. My thoughts are my thoughts. My heart is my heart. And as you grow in the understanding of how you keep being compromised by an unconscious, a complicit relationship, I said it, a codependent relationship with what bullies you, one day you just won't be willing to pay it off anymore. And if you've ever been through any real codependent relationship and you understood one day, I just can't be like this anymore, then you understand where the power comes from. It's not your power, it's the awareness that gives you the power to stop compromising yourself because you've seen the pain in it. Back to you, Doug.
All right, Guy. Rebecca is next in the queue. Let me see. Oops. I don't want that. Hold on. She wasn't able to raise her hand, so hold on. All right, Rebecca, you're unmuted. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Yes, I can. I couldn't raise my hand because my bullies have me pinned down.
Yes, that's right.
Hey, Guy, I just wanted to say, buddy, thank you for not holding back. The list of bullies, all my little bullies were like, no. And then
I don't think they have that voice, although Charlie tells me it's something like that. No.
Well, and then the last one came up, which was the bully of hopelessness. It's like,
yes.
What's the point? So I wanted to say that. I just want to say thank you, and I want to give you just this little example of what happened today with my discussion with my supervisor in our one-on-one.
Yeah.
And he might think I'm crazy, and that's okay. But we were talking, and then I had mentioned this one woman who, I see her. She rubs my edges. And so I was sharing. I had said something about her, and then before we ended, he said, "Oh, I want to come back to to Judy. So, do I need to talk to her? Like, does he need to take some action? And so I went into this explanation, like, well, Judy just rubs my edges, and I was talking about these entities within me, right? Like one entity, I see Judy's rubbing my edges. I see it. And then I'm like, but Judy's my best teacher. Like, I want to understand, I just want to look within. She's my teacher. I'm not sure he understood that, and that's okay. But it's like, what's she teaching me about me? Like what it's revealing.
Yes.
So it's like I'm dancing all over the place.
Yes, you are.
Namita's comment resonate. Everyone's comment resonate. I see all of that. I get sucked into the vortex to come out, but I'm just going to stay in my little comfy crucible.
Yeah.
That's all. I appreciate you all.
All right, Rebecca. That's fine. That's good. Yeah. Over to you, Doug.
Guy, that's all we have. No questions, written questions, or anyone in the queue right now.
Someone is coming up to speak, much to the chagrin of the audience, who wants to go home. Welcome to a friendly place, Mr. Stacy.
Good evening, my name's Jeff. And negative attention, meaning negative states, negative imagination, is the lunch money that Jeff pays these emotional bullies on a daily basis.
Yes.
And every day you're left hungry, bruised, and you get a little bit more, and there's another day that you can pay again. And probably one of my favorite Christmas movies, you remember Ralphie in the Christmas Story? For years, he is going the long way home. He's actually suffering, going a long way home in negative imagination because he doesn't want to run into Scott Farkas, if you remember in this story. And eventually you know how it ends. It ends in a conflict, but whether we're in avoidance or whether we're paying protection money like Guy was describing, or it's we're brought into this conflict one way or another, we don't see how we're crying uncle 1,000 different ways. And Jeff's way is imagining a better future, a better way how things would actually be different, but it's always back. And these actions are not just emboldening this inner bully inside of us, but we don't actually see how we're suffering, and that everything is coming back to this same relationship. Whether it's an avoidance, paying off a threat, or in the conflict. Like the last, just to wrap on last Sunday's talk, this idea of imaginary time really needs to be studied in us, because it seems like it's a release, but it's actually just distraction and forgetting the big picture of how we're suffering.
I'll close with this one idea. Anything you imagine in an unwanted moment in order to cope or otherwise avoid or control it is the first disguise of the bully. Because the bully promises you in imagination a time to come when you won't have to deal with the bully. But the very imagining of a time to come brings with it the identification with that time. And then anything that challenges that identity is seen as the bully when the bully came into existence the moment that you imagined a way to escape the experience of yourself. In that same moment, the bully appeared. And it was the bully that pointed your attention away from what you needed to look at in that moment. And I'm going to say goodnight before anything else happens.